The whole idea is when we threw it in at huddle and we had everybody and we were tagging out and tagging in, it just let everybody learn that we're all on the same page. That doing this is hard, but the growth from it is just unbelievable.
Welcome back to the Modern Agent Podcast. My name is Logan Ricchetti with Modern Realty. This podcast is a combination of thoughts and opinions on the real estate market in Midland, Michigan with our local real estate agents from Modern Realty. Our mission is to create informed and confident buyer and seller clients, so tune in to learn more about Midland's real estate market. How long have you been selling real estate?
Just a little over 18 years, since 2006. I got my license.
What's changed since 2006?
What's changed? A lot has changed. The market has changed significantly. The way that we operate, the way that we process, the way that we just function, period, has changed. Technology has come a long ways. The market has flipped 180 degrees. I mean, I started in 2006, 2008, 2009. The market just, it tanked for sellers. Yeah. It went way down. And so we had to go through 10, 11, 12, 13, 14 of the seller's market earning its way back to a norm. Mm-hmm. And then to move into 17, 18, and then 19, and then have the market go 180 degrees in the other direction and see double-digit yearly increases in value has just been off the charts.
Did you think about quitting in 2008?
So the reason why I didn't think about quitting in 2008 is because I had just jumped in 2006. And so in real estate, when you get in, and I got in with another local office and started, my training was brief, and I had to literally just go out every day and grind and dig and fight. And so I was used to that way of life. So for me, coming in and having the market go down, I just didn't know any different. Mm-hmm. There were several agents. I think at 2010 or 2011 at one point, I believe the board had dropped down to just 130 or 140 agents. Wow. Several agents had retired. And for me, it was on the way up. So I was able to work my way through it and then get to the other side and really just not know any different. Like, I hadn't experienced a booming market per se, and then hit the market where it slowed. I think the hardest part was just, doing a market analysis and then having to tell the seller what their house was worth. That was probably one of the hardest points.
I started in 2011, so I'd never really felt a downturn.
Sure.
My entire real estate sales career, the market's basically been going up.
True.
In the last year or so, we saw the volume of sales dwindle, significantly, 20, 30% fewer sales happening than the year before that. So it's the first time that I've ever had to experience any kind of headwinds, if you will, or turmoil in the real estate market itself. So, I guess the only other thing I could compare that to would be the COVID, period of time where we couldn't show houses and, couldn't bring buyers into the house and things like that. So that was a little bit of a struggle. But all that really did was that just pent up demand. And as soon as everything opened back up, the floodgates opened and the real estate transaction market in 2022 was unlike anything we'd ever seen.
Yeah, it took off.
So, anybody who started in real estate in the last 3-4 years, they've seen a very, very unusual time in the market in terms of number of transactions, average sale price, low inventory, high competition, and just a really almost an insane market of real estate. And now here we are in 2024, early 2024, we're starting to level back out and things are starting to normalize a little bit. What are you seeing now in terms of activity and volume and things like that?
I'm still seeing the seller's market, the inventory. Of course, unfortunately, we still have a major shortage in. There's still multiple offers, not to the extremes of 21 and 22. Mm-hmm. I think they've curbed to a lower percentage. Your over asks, your number of offers, but I still see a major drive in the seller's side of the market, and the buyers has not caught up at all. And really, it's taxing. It's so taxing to be a buyer right now. I've seen people emotionally just beat down, losing several offers, and that's the hardest part, I think. The hardest part is watching people have to fight their way through this process because it's supposed to be a place where you give people excellent service and the process isn't the hardest. And in this market, it's very hard. I can't imagine being a new agent trying to learn the multiple offer situation as it evolved yearly. It changed yearly, from different aspects of how you were writing purchase agreements to how you had to write them 2 years later and be even more aggressive. To know that an FHA loan really didn't stand a chance was just baffling. But I can't imagine what it's like to be a buyer. And of course, as a seller, it's fantastic, but then you have to go buy something. Mm-hmm. So it's almost like a double-edged sword for them. But it has evolved. What we feel like is a slow, like you said, back to a norm, I think it's returning to somewhat of a normal representation. But I don't think the genetic growth we had is going to change. I think there's some value growth in there that will remain.
I think you make a really good point about us having to adjust how we structure contracts over the past 3, 4, 5 years. We have had to make significant strategic and tactical changes into the way that we draft and structure offers for our buyer clients in order to increase their chances of those offers being accepted. And that's not something we've had to do in the past.
No.
In 2011, 12, 13, 14, 15, you started, 5, 6, 7, 8% below the listing price.
Yep.
And then the seller would usually make you a counter, and then you would usually counter again. And then hopefully you and the other agent could, come to an agreement and bridge the gap between that 5, 10, 12% discount from list price. That doesn't happen anymore.
No.
It's not even close. Those dynamics are very rare. We're starting to see those again. In fact, I wrote 2 offers this week that were under the listing price. And then, of course, we had to move up quickly. But just this morning, I wrote one that was cash, a little bit under the listing price, and we think we have a chance of getting it.
Yeah.
And I haven't done that. I don't think I've made an offer below listing price in 3 years.
Yeah, it's. I can't even imagine. I don't know that I haven't written one below listing price yet.
Yeah, and the reason that's because you're constantly competing, and there's a lesson there. If you're a seller or thinking about selling your house in any market, especially one that you have a little bit more control, like you do right now in a seller's market, you have to price your house in a way that generates multiple offers. And you want to maximize that point, but you don't want to go too high where you don't get multiple offers.
Right.
If you're not getting multiple offers in this market, you have grossly overpriced your house. And that's a very valid concern right now because prices have gone up so much that it's hard to accurately gauge where you should list the house, right?
Yeah, and I agree with you 100% on that. The other thing that kind of comes into play, and over time that I've learned, is that people underestimate condition of a home and how it impacts the price.
Yes.
And they underestimate the condition of the home and how it impacts the buyer's perception.
Yes.
When we do a lot of training in the office, we talk about how perceived value, and we have a lot of different ways that we convey that. But when you're sitting with a seller needs an agent that can show them that.
Yes.
And provide the proper information and teach them and help them see what the market's going to bring them.
Well, how do you convince a seller to do the hard things in terms of getting their house ready for sale from a condition standpoint when they're looking back at you and saying, Tim, we're going to get multiple offers no matter what we do? How do you convince them to do what they need to do to prepare that house for sale?
So in this market, that perception has run wild, and sellers, rightfully so, have been indoctrinated with that perception. Mm-hmm. And when I'm talking to a seller and I'm explaining the process, and they have to understand, like when we're looking through the comps and I'm showing them the condition, when the condition doesn't match properly, I always ask them what they feel like their house is worth, because it's important to me to know emotionally where a seller's at. But then I also let them know that the reason why they hired me is they need somebody who's independent and objective. Mm-hmm. And that's what they need. They need a professional, objective person to take care of them. Mm-hmm. And when we look at the comps and we go through the situation and I show them the conditions and I show them places where your home is often maybe nicer or sometimes lacking thereof compared to the comps, then you have to work your way to that price. And most times, most sellers see it. They see the advantage of prepping the home properly.
It's an interesting dynamic between a seller and a listing agent, because the seller is hiring the agent to perform a service. Yep. They're paying that person a commission to do that. And so that person serves the client. But part of serving the client is convincing the client to do the things that they don't necessarily want to do at the front.
Right.
And that's a really difficult dynamic. But what I say when I have a client, when I'm sitting down with a seller and we're talking about preparing the house for sale, usually we're past the interview process and we've made the decision to work together. And now we're talking about condition. And every time, without fail, the sellers, there's a limit of how much they want to do to prepare the house. It's just human nature. They're busy.
Absolutely.
They don't want to spend money. They don't want to spend time and effort. They're trying to move and deal with other things in their life. But what I tell them is, hey, look, part of why you hired me is because you knew that I would convince you to do the things that you don't want to do because I know how important it is for you.
Right.
It's just like your dentist trying to convince you to floss.
Right.
You know, you don't want to floss, but you know you need to floss, and your dentist is going to convince you to floss because he knows or she knows that that's what's best for your teeth.
Right.
Your real estate agent is going to convince you to declutter, depersonalize, and neutralize your house and paint the color, paint the wall in the bedroom because it's all scruffy, and maybe power wash the exterior real quick and have the carpets cleaned so the dog smell kind of goes away. And those are things that you have to do. Now, you don't have to do them, but you have to do them. Because if you don't do them, you don't get, like you said, Tim, you don't get that competition. You don't get that buyer urgency. And that's exactly what you're trying to create. You're trying to create 2 or 3 or 4 buyers that are fighting for your house.
Right.
And if it smells like dog hair, they're not going to fight for it. Right. They're going to have objections. They're going to have reservations. They're going to have concerns. And now think about that. We're talking about a $200,000, $300,000, $400,000 house, and we're talking about a $200 or $300 repair to clean the carpet. But that could adjust the value, the perceived value in a competitive offer by $5,000, $10,000, $15,000.
Significantly.
What are we talking about? We have to do it. So that's tough. But I think you and I and most of our office does a great job of convincing our sellers to do what we need them to do.
Okay.
And that's why we have such great results selling houses. So when you're training a new rookie or a newer agent, and you do a lot of mentorship at the office, you are basically our top mentor, our associate broker, manager, leader. So everybody comes to you for guidance, mentorship, and training.
Yeah.
When you are helping a new agent with the home selling process, tactics, and understanding how that process works, what are some things that you convey to those new agents in order to help them become competent and talented quickly?
So the couple big pieces of the puzzle are teaching them how, one, that real estate needs to become a conversation.
Ooh.
And you need to be able to conversate with your sellers and your buyers. You need to be able to teach them the process. Something that just hands down makes Modern unique is we teach people. Mm-hmm. That's what allows us to create very confident and informed buyers and sellers. It puts people at peace. It puts them at rest. And there's still pressure in the situation, but they trust who's leading them.
Yeah.
And in that process, when I sit with an agent in our office, the way we have it set up is it's ongoing. We never, we don't have a train for 6 months and cutoff date. There's just residual 24/7 and we're available to them 24/7. And so when we train them and we take them through the process, I always teach them to memorize the process first, learn it, do a couple transactions, because in real estate, that's the only way you learn.
Yep.
And then you need to take that memorization and turn it into a conversation. And then you begin to teach.
Yes.
We really need to teach people. We don't sell them homes. We teach them the process and we guide them through it. And so that way, when whatever they're paying for, the expense, they receive the service that's the best. And that's what we shoot for.
I think you really hit it on the head there. At Modern Realty, we've set up something called the seller roadmap. And basically that lays out the blueprint, the roadmap for how to sell your home. And it starts with setting the stage and then showcasing and then selling. And what we do is we break it down step by step, and we help the seller understand what they're getting into, what to expect, how to prepare the house for sale, how to activate it, how to introduce it to the market, how to expose it. And then once we get an offer, how to coordinate that, and then how to close the transaction. So we have systemized the process all the way down into a repeatable, codifiable, easily explained and taught system. And then we use that system to sell every house we list.
Correct. That is one of the unique pieces, and actually one of the parts I enjoy the most about Modern is as a buyer's and a seller's agent. When I came into the business, the training was brief, and it was, the statement we used was "fake it till you make it."
Yeah.
But to a seller who's paying $12,000 for a selling commission, fake it till you make it shouldn't be acceptable.
Ain't gonna fly.
Right. I mean, you got to know what you're getting for your value, and that's why the modern pledge
Yes.
in the seller's process. When you walk through sellers through it, they begin to realize, okay, one, there is a lot to this process. It's not just as simple as putting up a sign, guessing at a number, putting it out there, even in a seller's market, and hoping for the best, but that they're paying for an agent to provide them excellent service.
Well, let's talk about what a seller pays for when they pay a commission to have their house sold. And a lot of people just simply don't understand the mechanics of sale commissions and how they're distributed and what you get for what you pay. So typically, let's say, just use an example service here, a $100,000 house with a 6% sale commission would mean that the seller would be paying $6,000 upon the sale of their house. Well, they're going to take that $6,000 and it's going to go to the listing agent they hire. Okay.
Yep.
So then what happens from there?
Well, if that agent sells the home, then that agent would obtain the 6% and he would earn the full commission, and he would be representing the buyer side, which is, again, essentially still representing two transactions, right?
Sure.
Let's say if you're representing a buyer just on a buyer side only, that's still earning that commission, right? You're still doing the inspection, the appraisal, any issues that come up that you're negotiating, the whole piece of that contract on top of taking the seller side. If another agent gets involved, let's say either somebody in our office or another agent from another cooperating broker brings us an offer, then that 6% splits 3% each direction. And then if people want to know a little bit deeper, inside an office, if you have a split with your brokerage, that 3% could be split again at whatever split you have with your brokerage.
All right, so let's break that down just to recap. So a 6% sale commission charged by a listing agent to a seller gets paid by the seller to the listing agent. He or she takes that 6%, that $6,000, and he or she cooperates or splits out, typically half, not always, but usually half of that commission to the cooperating agent that brings the buyer. And so that listing agent compensates that agent for bringing the buyer. So now there's $3,000 here and $3,000 on that side of the table. And then each one of those agents typically has some type of commission split agreement with their brokerage, which means that the agents of the commissions that they earn, they take a portion of those commissions and they pay those into their brokerage. Now, for that, what the trade that the agent gets with the brokerage is the brokerage provides service, training, mentorship, leadership, tools and systems and all those different things. And then the agents bring sales, and then that's the symbiotic relationship between the agent and the brokerage. But what I want to talk about is what that means to a seller paying a listing agent. So what that typically means is in a scenario where the seller pays the listing agent $6,000 on a commission, that listing agent might take that $6,000, pay out $3,000 to the buyer's agent, and then they might even pay half or more or less to their brokerage. So let's just say they pay half into their brokerage. Now they're left with $1,500. Right. So your agent who you've hired and paid $6,000 to sell your house is going to earn maybe $1,500, $1,600, $1,700 on that sale. Let's break that down a little deeper. Your agent's going to pay money to market and list that house for sale. They're going to pay photography, staging, and other marketing, social media, and other channels that they promote your listing out onto.
If the agent that you're hiring provides those services, as a seller, it's important to find that out.
And of course, all the modern agents do. So that's a good
100%.
point. So my point though is it might take your house, 30 days to prepare for sale, another 30 to 60 days to find an offer, maybe another 30 days to close it. So it might take 4, 5, 6 months in a relationship between you and your listing agent to have your house sold, and your agent might make $1,500 doing that,
correct,
or $3,000 or $4,000 or $5,000 doing it. Now, commissions are expensive. Don't get me wrong; it's a big check to write. But just keep in mind that your listing agent that was working for you is only getting a small portion of the commission that you're paying them, and they're earning that over several weeks and months. And so really, a lot of times there's not complaints, but people have a hard time wrapping their head around the commissions that they pay to sell a home. And I understand that, but there are so many things that go into it and so many different people and so much time and energy and effort and expertise that really there's a lot of value driven when you pay a commission, especially if your agent does the job well. Because if your agent does the job well, he or she has almost always more than earned the commission that they paid. Because they've gotten you the absolute most the house can be worth, and they've actually gotten the house sold. And that's really what you're paying for, right?
Correct. And the big thing is you'll see the results, especially if the agent has been trained properly.
Yes. And
they've been given the opportunities and shown how to do the job and really given the guidelines, and then has somebody that if they do have a question, we teach all of our agents, if you can't answer a question, tell your seller, I don't know, but give me a minute and let me get right back with you and I'll get the answer.
We have so many layers of support in a transaction at Modern Realty that even our newest agents that don't have all the expertise and all the 18 years experience like you have, if they don't know the answer to a question, they go right to you, they go right to Cassie, they go right to Kevin, they go right to me, they go right to the listing department, right to the closing department, right to the admin department. We have like 6, 7, 8 levels of support that an agent, not to mention the other 50 agents in the brokerage that are always willing to lend a hand. And that's a big benefit of working at a place that has a building. That's a big benefit of working at a place that has 20, 30, 40, 50 agents. And that's a benefit of working at a place that has a listing and a closing department, because you as a new agent coming into this shark-infested waters of real estate sales with no understanding of what you're doing, you need a lot of help.
It's also one of the biggest benefits, and actually, frankly, probably one of the foundational pieces of modern realty, is that we've built an office that's structured around the fact that everybody in there competes with one another. But at the end of the day, if you need a hand, there's not a single agent in there that won't help you.
I had a manufactured house listing coming up, and I didn't know exactly how to find the year bill and get all those pieces of data that I needed. I sent an email out to the brokerage. I had 2 or 3 people reach out to me within a couple of minutes and help me solve that problem.
Yeah.
That doesn't exist, I don't think, in the cloud-based brokerages as much. It's hard to get that level of camaraderie and support just because you don't have the friendships and the tight-knit community that we've created at Modern Realty. But let's talk about what it's like to come in on day 1 through day 90 as a new modern agent coming into our brokerage with training and onboarding. What does that look like?
So the beauty of this is we've actually been able to evolve this with the systems that you've built. And we now have a really great system. We have a very trackable, what we call the 90-day boot camp that you designed. And frankly, it really helps us begin the training. Day 1, you come in, we get the system set up, we get everything in place, and then we outline the 90-day training, and we start with the fundamentals of who we are, what our mission is, and then we move into understanding the job. Mm-hmm. What do we actually do as real estate agents? Like, do we have different parts or aspects? Like, often people stand back and you talk to most people and they're like, oh, I'd love to have your job to show houses all day long. When really showing houses is a lot of fun, but it's 90, I call it 90 seconds of the job. It's 90 seconds and that's over with. And then you go to work. Then you start writing offers. Yeah. And you get in the mud and you get to work and you take care of the clients. But from the training standpoint, we bring you in, we teach you the process blanketed up front. Mm-hmm. And a lot of it doesn't make sense until you start doing transactions. And then the mental growth of our agents is exponential. Yeah. Because after the 90-day boot camp, when we go through, we do random testing, and we use that to help them improve. Because it's like I always tell the agent, when we do the test, and they're like, oh, I don't want to do it. And I say, this isn't for me. I know it. Mm-hmm. Like, this is for your growth. And actually, they've come to appreciate it, because when they have the second and third test and they're looking at the results and they're seeing where they're learning and they're improving, they begin to appreciate it even more. And then they begin to see the pieces of the puzzle moving as they get into a transaction. The transition mentally for them from the 90-day to the 180-day is astounding. To a 12-month process, they really begin to grow. And then through that process, in the beginning, your first 2 or 3 transactions, I do with the agents directly. Yeah. I will hold the appointments. I'll walk the clients through it, and the agent will sit there and learn the process and see it done. And then they'll do it, and if they want me to sit in with them, I will. And then after that, I usually am close by. Mm-hmm. And then the next thing you know, they're off and running, and they're having fun with it. And then they're stressing about doing a market analysis, and that takes several months of training, years. Yeah. It took me years to learn the process, to really be able to analyze the market well. But the support, the program, we've been able to just rapidly grow agents and have a real good knowledge basis. They're not faking it till they make it. Mm-hmm. They're working their way through it, and they certainly don't know it all, but they know a lot more quicker than the average agent.
Well, let's break down exactly what happens when a new agent comes in. And one of the first things that we do once we got them onboarded into the office with the board of realtors and they've gotten their email address set up and all those things, we get them right into a system that we call Trainual. Yep. It's a consolidation of data, and we have some different modules in there. We have one called the buyer procedures, one called the seller procedures, and then we have my favorite one, which is called the new agent boot camp. And we also have one called the new agent onboarding. It's a set of steps that they go in, they get access to this module, and they follow the steps, and it gets them set up. It gets their photo on the website, it gets their email account set up, it gets all the logistical things out of the way. And then they go right into the boot camp. Right. And like you said, Chapter 1 of the new agent training bootcamp at Modern Realty talks about the modern agent mission.
Right.
Okay. The modern agent unique selling propositions. It shows the modern agent who they are and what our core values as a company are, and more importantly to them, how they can learn and incorporate those core values into their value proposition with clients. As soon as they've gotten done with chapter 1, they go right into chapter 2, which is what we call the real estate client life cycle.
Yep.
Now, this is almost revolutionary to systemize the real estate life cycle a little bit. Leads, appointments, clients, contracts, and closings. That's what every buyer and seller goes through. That's the life cycle of a buyer or a seller when they're going through this process. And what we've done is we've broken down each step with a milestone and a checkpoint, and then we've created best practices and tools around every phase of the life cycle. So if you're a new agent and you think that it's just about showing houses and having fun, right in chapter 2, you start to realize, oh, I have to generate, cultivate, and convert leads. I have to set, conduct, and follow up on appointments. I have to sign clients. I have to structure, negotiate, finalize, and deliver contracts.
Yeah.
And then I have to manage closings with inspections, appraisals, loan approvals, earnest money deposits, final walkthroughs, all kinds of things. There's hundreds of things that go on in a transaction. After chapter 2, we go right into chapter 3, which is the home buying process. Right. Prepare, search, offer, finance, due diligence, and close. We have 6 steps with 18 parts of the home buying process that the agents need to learn so they can help the buyers through.
Right.
And then we have the same thing with the seller roadmap and the seller life cycle. And then once we get through chapter 4, we go into things like contact relationship management, transaction management, market analysis, how to do a market analysis. That's a hard thing to do when you've never done one before.
How to hold open houses.
How to conduct an open house.
Yeah.
And then one of the things that we've put together, you and I in the last couple of years have really dialed in, is what we call the modern agent assessment. Okay. Yep. Take us through the modern agent assessment and how it works.
So the modern agent assessment was the test that I was talking about where we took each segment, like you talked about, chapter 1, chapter 2, chapter 3, and we have basically you designed a question, and then we answer. The 3 categories are how confident you are, how well you explain the situation, and what's the level of knowledge. Yeah. And then we mark each category appropriately, whether it's fair, poor, fair, good, excellent. And then once the agent has reached good in every category, they're able to pass on to the next section of the testing. And that, again, like I said in the beginning, the first test they take, they don't see it. But then what I do is I keep the first page and I duplicate it again. And when they take it again and I put them side by side, you literally watch the light bulb go off. All of this information that feels overwhelming to them initially begins to make sense as they start to see the progress.
So the modern agent assessment breaks down your confidence, your comprehension, and your communication. So how confident you are in the understanding the concept, how well you can communicate it, and how well you comprehend it. And the scores are fair, good, great, excellent, or something like that. And what happens is you and your mentor grade yourself. How well do you understand the home buying process? Well, you have a good comprehension of it, but you struggle with your confidence and you struggle with your communication. Okay, so let's give you that score. And then what that does is it goes in order of the entire boot camp, right down the line. So as you do module by module by module, you grade yourself and you can identify your shortcomings and your weaknesses, and then your mentor helps you train those up.
Right.
So basically what we've done is we've systemized the learning process and created an objective analysis tool that you and your mentor can use to grade and give yourself a score. And one of the reasons that the genius behind this was I wanted to be able to check on the status of 5 or 6 new agents at a time. Yeah. And when I'm not doing the one-on-one mentorship and other people are doing it, how do we create a system where we can objectively quantify everybody's status? So first of all, we wanted to have everybody going on the same track.
Right.
So we built
significantly.
And then we wanted to be able to see, objectively speaking, how they thought they were doing and how their mentor thought they were doing. And then once in a while, I could come in and grade them and test them and say, okay, tell me about the home buying process. And they can either knock it out or they struggle with it, and we can adjust the scores accordingly.
Right.
But more importantly than that, at first everybody was trying to round the scores up to make them look good. But what we realized was we don't want high scores. We want real scores.
Right.
We want to know really where you're struggling and where you're feeling good, because where you're struggling is where we need to work.
Right.
And so that's helped with the learning curve a lot. Another thing that we've been doing lately on a brokerage level that I think is very unique is role plays at huddle.
I would, and I was gonna say in the training section that we have the part where we role play, and as far as that testing goes, one of the unique parts is it also allows me to have 5 or 6 different agents at 5 or 6 different levels, but knowing where they are at all times.
That's
so
huge.
that's a big advantage. But yes, the role play lately, it's just one of the requirements that we have, and nobody thinks it's fun. Everybody chokes. Everybody freezes up.
Well, we make it fun. We make it fun.
Right. The whole idea is when we threw it in at huddle and we had everybody and we were tagging out and tagging in, it just let everybody learn that we're all on the same page. That doing this is hard, but the growth from it is just unbelievable.
Let me set the table on this. A couple of weeks ago, every couple of weeks we have a training huddle where we all get together Wednesday at noon, and we all get in the big conference room in the middle of the space, and we train and we talk and we share ideas and successes and failures. Recently, we decided that you and I were going to host a mock role play between an agent and a client in the middle of the room. So we set up we put a table and 2 chairs in the middle of the room in front of 30 or 40 people around the edges of the room.
Yeah.
And it was a little intimidating, but we said, do you remember the first thing I said was, look, everyone, we're going to try this out. We're going to do this role play together. And yes, it's going to be a little intimidating because all your pals are sitting around in a circle watching you try to do this in front of people. So I understand that this is going to be tough, but this is our job. Right. And this should not be difficult for us because this is what we do every day. Right. And a professional baseball player does not get nervous walking up to the plate. Right. Okay. He might get nervous because he's got a hit, but he knows what to do. Right. You don't walk up to the plate and not know what to do when you're a professional. So we decided, and I was going to lead by example. We were going to lead by example and do the first couple role plays. So we sat down, we pretended that one of us was a client and one of us was the agent. And we went through the introduction process. And then about 30 seconds in, I looked around and Tom Holly walks in and I say, tag in. So he's late to huddle, of course, as always. He walks in and he sits right down in my chair and he just keeps going. Right. And he does a great job. And all of a sudden, everybody starts laughing and everybody loosens up a little bit. And then I say, okay, Tom, tag out somebody else. So somebody else comes in and continues the role play through this transaction. And you know what happens? First of all, everybody starts to loosen up and have fun. Right. Yep. Everybody starts to realize, hey, this is okay. Get it. We get it. And this is all right. And you know what, too, though? What I thought was great was everybody did some things really well, and everybody struggled with some things, but we all learned. Right. Everybody grew. Everybody grew, and everybody grows when you do that exercise. Right. And what I found after huddle was over the first time we did it was I got several messages from people saying, "Wow, that was exciting. That was fun. We need more of that." Right. And I don't think that exists at most places where they don't have the environment to collaborate and learn from each other like that. But you and I have found that helping agents learn from each other and helping agents have a mindset of opening their hearts to the other agents, so everybody, and to be vulnerable, frankly. Right. Yeah. In a lot of places, nobody would even step up and sit in that chair, but in our brokerage, everybody was willing to do it. Right. And I was very proud of that, to see that happen. And I learned, I made some mistakes. I did some things well. I showed some people some stuff, and then I learned some stuff. And I realized, wow, this is a very valuable exercise for everybody. Yeah, and the impact was, it's huge. Like even when we did the buyer one, and there was a 2-week-old agent sitting in that chair who told me, there's just no way, dude, don't put me in there. But we put him in there, and he crushed it, and then he choked. Like, it happened to everybody. So it is. Like you said, speaking to the vulnerability part, it's the part of our office that's undeniable. Yeah. To just being part of Modern. We create an environment where people know they're safe. Yeah. And we let people know that we care about them and that we support them. And that's the biggest piece to the training aspect. 100%. If you're a new agent or a newer agent or any kind of agent, the environment in which you place yourself to learn the business is basically 90% of the factor whether you're going to make it or not. You have to be immersed in sales training, in the client life cycle, in objection management and handling scenarios, doing market analysis, understanding the process, getting advice from friends that are in your brokerage and things like that. There are so many benefits to having a team environment that I couldn't imagine. Well, I can't imagine actually, but you just can't imagine learning in a place where you're watching videos and that's it, or you're reading trainings and you don't have a lot of help. Yeah, if you don't have somebody there, or you don't have the level of, like you said, the level of team
essentially. I mean, we all talk about teams, but we genuinely have it. Like I said, everybody's safe. And even to this day, we were having a conversation with a new trainee one time, and they're like, oh, I really just got to hit my desk fee and you'll be good. And your response was, no, actually, hitting your desk fee is great, but I don't care about that. What I want you to do is I want you to hit your desk fee, and then I want you to come talk to me.
Yeah.
And I want you to tell me about how you want to double your business after that. And that is my favorite part of this job. And that's when that person sitting there knew that it wasn't about the desk fee. What you cared about was, in your last piece of that comment was, because what I care about is that you hit the goals that you have for you and your family.
100%.
You hit your financial goals and your dreams. And they realized then it's not about the desk fee at all. It's about the fact that once the desk fee was over with, then you cared even more to get involved, because that's what matters.
Yeah, there are some, I think that dynamic does exist where there's an economic value to an agent, to a brokerage, and then once they've maxed out that value, there's not a lot more economic value for the year. But what you're mentioning and referencing is we care above and beyond that economic value, because we want our agents to be very successful. And I'll tell you, if I have a mission, it's to help agents support their families and change their lifestyles. And we've been doing that for a dozen years now. And I love the idea of helping somebody lift their economic status and maintain it for their families. When I interview agents, it's one of the first things I look at is, what is this person, man or woman, what are they trying to achieve? What are they trying to change? And if they're not trying to change their economic condition, they're not trying to change the status of their family's economic life, then it's hard to get excited about helping them. But when they do want to change their economic situation, that's where I get very passionate and I start to really open up and get excited and want to encourage them to proceed, because their real estate sales is a business that can change your financial status and your income, and we want to help you do that.
The other piece of that is we've never put a limit on the help.
Yeah.
So if you want to come in and you're working a full-time career and you're successful, but you want to enjoy real estate and you want to sell 1.5, we make you the best 1.5 million selling agent you can be. We've never put a quota on any piece of our business.
You know, it's a really good point that you just made. We don't necessarily care what your goal is.
Right.
We care that you hit your goal.
Right.
And we have $10 million goals. We got a $15 million goal, and we got a $1 million goal in our office, and that's okay.
Yeah.
And I think that people that are trying to augment their income, or their financial goals just aren't that high for whatever reason, I think that's okay.
Right.
And a lot of people don't realize that. They think that you have to be a hard charger, high producer, otherwise it won't work. You could be a part-time agent and do a great job and help 5, 10, 15 clients a year and do fine.
Right.
And you know what? Part-time agents don't have as many clients, and they get to focus a little bit more heavily on the ones that they have.
Right.
That's okay. Our biggest thing at Modern Realty is that when you do come in and you articulate your goal, we're going to make sure you make it.
That's what we fight for.
Thanks for coming on the Modern Agent Podcast.
Right.
Thanks for listening to another episode of the Modern Agent Podcast. Please follow at Modern Realty Midland on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube. And if you need to buy or sell a house, please reach out to Modern Realty by going to www.modernrealty.us. Modern Realty, your home, our focus.